Jack Russell, or Werewolf by Night, is one of the most fascinating characters in the Marvel Universe, given his ancestry and association with lycanthropy. First introduced in the Marvel Spotlight comics in 1972, Jack Russell has spent most of his life striking a balance between his human and werewolf side, trying to use his curse to help others. He's gained a lot of fan attention. Today, we'll explore his story, power, and the traits that made him known as the Werewolf by Night. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Who is Jack Russell, Werewolf by Night? Born to Gregory and Laura Russell, Jacob or Jack Russell grew up in his father's homeland in Transylvania. They lived in the family's ancestral home until the hunters discovered that the family had a history of lycanthropy and targeted Gregory. They soon killed him, and Laura was quite overwhelmed by her husband's death, as well as the curse that was bestowed upon the family. She decided to move to the United States with Jack and her daughter, Lissa, and soon met Philip Russell. The two got married and moved to California, and Jack lived a content and luxurious life under his stepfather's care. Things seemed to be going well for him until he reached his 18th birthday, when the curse finally got to him and turned him into a werewolf. What is Jack Russell's early life like? Before we get into the details of his transformation, it is important to explore the history of lycanthropy in his family, which can be traced all the way back to 1795. Back in the day, Russoff's ancestor, Gregory, set out on a mission to avenge his wife's death after she was bitten by none other than Vlad Dracula. Fortunately, Gregory did not anticipate Dracula's power, and one of the female werewolves in his service bit him and turned him into a werewolf. Since Gregory's children were already quite young, they did not inherit the curse, and the family was safe until Gregory Russoff got his hand on a copy of the Darkhold in the mid-1950s. Gregory was the great-great-grandson of the late Gregory, and he recited a passage that activated the werewolf curse within him. He kept this a secret for as long as he could, but a mob of hunters eventually killed him off, while his wife Laura traveled to the United States with the kid. In these circumstances, Jack Russell was unaware of the curse that loomed over his head, and he only realized it the second he turned 18 and activated the curse. How did Jack become Werewolf by Night? Unfortunately for him, Jack's birthday eve was also a full moon night, and he ended up inheriting the curse and transforming just before his birthday. The next day, he realized that he was about to transform at his birthday party, and he had to escape before he turned into a werewolf in front of everyone. While he was struggling with his new identity, his family was also undergoing some trouble after his stepfather Philip canceled a payment to their driver, Maxwell Grant. In order to get back at Philip, Grant damaged the brakes of Laura's car and even blackmailed her and Jack by threatening to tell others about Gregory's lycanthropy. As the car's brakes malfunctioned, Laura was on her deathbed, and Jack suspected that Philip had some role to play in her death. As she took her last breath, Laura revealed that Philip was Gregory's brother, and their stepdad was also their uncle. She made Jack promise that she would not try to get back at Philip or hurt him, and the newly transformed werewolf then swore to hunt Grant down and kill him. While he had avenged his mother's death, he stayed true to his promise and spared Philip's life. In due time, he learned that he had inherited Castle Russoff, but Philip had used his position as a trustee to sell the place to Dr. Miles Blackgum. Meantime, a motorcycle gang known as the Hell Runner attacked Lissa, and Jack assumed his werewolf form to scare them off. He then realized he should keep his distance from Lissa to ensure her safety, as he lost all control when he transformed. Soon enough, Nathan Timley picked him up and took him home, where his wife Andrea waited for Jack in the hopes that he knew more about the Darkhold's whereabouts. They hoped that Jack would know something about the book and threw him in the dungeon when they realized he could not help them. Here, Jack fought off their deformed minion Craig and almost escaped the house while Andrea tried to curse him. Fortunately, she did not have the book, and the spell backfired and left Jack free to escape. He then meets Buck Cowan, a journalist who tells him all about Philip selling the castle to the Blackguard and the whereabouts of the Darkhold. As it turns out, the book should have been at the castle since it belonged to his father back in the day. Cowan then helped Jack by distracting Philip, while the young werewolf sneaked into the castle to find the Darkhold. He also came across Miles and Marlene Blackgum while they were experimenting on people and turned into a werewolf to teach them a lesson. Fortunately, Marlene used her powers to turn him to stone, and he had to wait until sunrise to transform back. In the meantime, Buck located the Darkhold and took it along after rescuing Jack, but they were not free from Marlene's tricks. She somehow tricks them into returning to the castle to get the book back, but Jack manages to outsmart her again and escape. They return to Buck's home and enlisted the help of Father Joquez. to translate the Darkhold, but Jack's challenges were far from over as Mark Cephalo soon kidnapped him. To use his powers for his own benefit, after escaping from his clutches, Russell continued to transform during the full moon and mostly confined himself to a room. He wanted to ensure that he did not harm anyone else, and while he did not kill anyone, he did end up scarring or crippling some humans. Over time, he even designed an escape-proof cell and made it a point to remain within its confines during his full moon transformation. Russell then came across the three who are all, who helped him ease his curse to some extent and enabled him to change shape voluntarily and retain his intellect after transforming. He also approached Dr. Carl Mala to make his transformations easier, but he betrayed him and used an experimental machine on him. Spider-Woman then stepped in to rescue him, but Malice's experiment had side effects that lasted quite a long time. He lost control, whatever little control he had over his transformation, and had longer ears, a curved spine, and canine legs. Russell was also caught up in the scheme of a satanic cult that hoped to sacrifice him for a ritual, and he eventually joined hands with Moon Knight to confront the cultists. As he returned to Los Angeles, he realized that his animalistic side had been getting stronger with time, and he enlisted the help of Dr. Morbius to deal with it. He eventually joined the Midnight Suns under Morbius's leadership and continued to fight for good until the day he could finally get rid of the werewolf curse. Who is Wolfsbane's child, and how is Jack involved? Just before Rain Sinclair gave birth to her son, aka Wolfsbane's child, Jack Russell felt a strange power drawing him, as well as other supernatural entities and God, to New York City. While some of these entities were determined to get their hands on the child, Russell was among those few characters who stepped up to protect him. Soon after Sinclair gave birth, Russell decided to take the child away in the hopes of raising him in a safe environment. However, he was unable to protect him for too long, as enemy forces soon came up with a plan to kidnap him around the time he hit puberty. Fortunately, the child soon found his mother, and Russell then moved in with the Sinclairs for some time to look after them. What is the bloodstone in the Marvel Universe? Known as an ancient supernatural red gem, the bloodstone has been passed down for generations within the bloodstone family. The gem was supposedly sent to space by powerful beings known as the Exomon, hoping it would help them conquer other dimensions. However, it ended up crashing on Earth, where Ulysses Bloodstone discovered it and gained superpowers such as strength, speed, and heat. While the gem came at the cost of losing members of his tribe as well as alien threats, Ulysses successfully used it to kill creatures such as Sasquatch, mermaids, and vampires, and hoped to pass it down to his daughter, Elsa. However, she left the family, and Ulysses orchestrated a contest to choose a worthy winner who would keep Bloodstone's legacy alive. In an attempt to expand the Marvel Cinematic Universe's reign, Michael Giacchino undertook a horror project based on the Werewolf of Night. Gael Garcia Bernal stars as Jack Russell, and the story takes place after Ulysses' death, as his widow, Verusa, oversees the contest. She handpicks Jack, Jovan, Azrael, Lion, and Barrasso to compete for the gem, while Elsa Bloodstone makes a striking return to claim the Bloodstone for herself. As the competition begins, Verusa reveals that the Bloodstone was placed upon a monster known as Man-Thing in order to weaken him, and whoever manages to kill the monster would rightfully gain the gem. Soon enough, the competition begins, and Jack Russell reveals that the Man-Thing is actually his friend. He realizes the stone is hurting him and teams up with Elsa to free him from his misery. As the stone falls out, Jack tries to pick it up and return it to Elsa, but the power surge within the Bloodstone warns the others about Jack's true nature as a werewolf. Soon enough, Jack loses his senses and starts killing anyone in his path until he stumbles upon Elsa and realizes that she is an ally. As she rightfully gains ownership of the Bloodstone, Elsa decides against using it on Jack, who runs away into the night. What supernatural abilities does Jack possess as the werewolf by night? For starters, Jack Russell had the ability to transform into a werewolf through sheer force of will. After he inherited the curse of lycanthropy that ran in his family, he could either meditate or wait for the full moon to undergo this transformation, and he retained some of his intellect and speech ability in this animalistic form when he transformed on his own. However, he appeared in a more aggressive manner when he involuntarily transformed during the full moon and lost all his cognitive ability. In his human form, Jack Russell had enhanced reflexes that were twice as much as those of a regular athlete, as well as superhuman stamina. His musculate produced way less fatigue toxins as compared to an ordinary human, and he could exert himself for endless hours before feeling tired. He also had superhuman strength and could lift up to 1,500 pounds in his human form. As a werewolf, his strength was on a whole different level, and he could lift up to 1 ton and leap about 18 feet into the air. He also had enhanced agility, balance, and coordination, and he could also reach up to 35 miles per hour as a result of his superhuman speed. His senses were enhanced to a point where they resembled an actual wolf's acute senses, more than a human. As a result, he could smell living creatures up to 100 feet away, detect the most undetectable sound, such as human heartbeat, at a distance of 30 feet, and even perceive the infrared spectrum and detect heat signatures of people in utter darkness. He also had knife-like claws and teeth that could tear through wood, cinder block, and even some metals, and his bodily tissues were much tougher than those of a regular human. His superhuman durability made him resistant to physical injury caused by fall, low-caliber bullet, and impact forces, which was even more enhanced during a full moon transformation. In this state, Morbius described him as an inhuman killing machine, and he was so durable that even Wonder Man had to exert himself entirely to stand a chance against him.
And you?
Does Werewolves by Night have a regenerative healing factor? Is he immortal? While Jack Russell is not technically immortal, he has an impressive regenerative healing factor that allows him to deal with fatal injury in a matter of time. While this healing factor does not prevent him from aging or protect him from illnesses, it does help him recover from attacks that might be fatal to a regular human being. He can regenerate any damaged body tissues with enhanced speed and efficiency, which might sometimes give off the impression that he might be immortal. While he has not been granted immortality, Russell once regenerated his own head after Deadpool blew it off, and there is no doubt that he can dodge death in most situations. His healing factor is about 10 times stronger than a human, and he has displayed the ability to heal tissue damage from bullet wounds, punctures, and burns without leaving any mark. What skills does Jack Russell have? Besides gaining a ton of supernatural powers and a regenerative healing factor, Russell had honed his combat abilities to an impressive extent. Even though he did not receive any formal training, he was capable of standing his ground in a face-off, and he gained quite a reputation as a formidable combatant. In addition to that, he was an intelligent being with an in-depth knowledge of occultism. He was an expert on supernatural matter and occult forces, and one could rely on him while dealing with mystical, unknown creatures. What are Jack Russell's weaknesses? In typical werewolf fashion, Jack Russell was quite vulnerable to silver objects or weapons. Since ancient times, silver has often been used to keep supernatural beings at bay, and Russell was no exception to this weakness. While he could heal from a regular attack, a silver bullet shot would be fatal to his life due to the mystical purity of this element. Of course, not all these attacks were fatal, and he could heal from an injury caused by a silver weapon, even if the recovery could be at a much slower pace than recovering from injuries caused by a conventional, like most traditional werewolves. Jack Russell was also compelled to transform into a werewolf on a full moon night. This resulted in a loss of cognitive ability and an increase in aggressive animalistic behavior, and he also posed a greater danger to those around him in this state. In fact, he could not even recognize his allies in this form and was prone to attacking. Just how powerful is Werewolf by Night compared to other characters in the MCU? It is no secret that Russell has outdone himself as the MCU's first ever werewolf, and his fighting skills while competing for the bloodstone left us all in shock. This instance left fans wondering about his strength as compared to other Marvel characters, but the Amazing Spider-Man comics established that Spider-Man's strength is on a whole different level than Russell. While he was not as strong as superheroes, Russell certainly outclasses most human characters, such as Moon Knight. It is safe to say that MCU powerhouses such as Thor, Hercules, Hulk, or Captain Marvel might easily overpower the Werewolf by Night. However, he is powerful enough to lift cars or break through metals, and his sharp claws and killer instinct make him a formidable opponent. He might be able to stand his ground in fights against the likes of Spider-Man or Captain America, and his animalistic nature does give him a touch of savagery and warns his opponents against underestimating. In the comic, he once managed to fight and do great harm to Iron Man's armor, and we can only hope for any future crossover series where we can see him go toe-to-toe with popular MCU names. Surprising facts about Werewolf by Night you didn't. As it turns out, Jack Russell's name was an unintentional joke by co-creator Jerry Conway, who did not realize that he had named this canine adjacent character after Jack Russell Terriers. Conway claims that he did not intend to name him after a dog breed known for their energy and athleticism, but it does make for quite an iconic name. Fans also don't know that he once managed to battle the entirety of the West Coast Avengers at once, and even co-founded the Legion of Monsters alongside Ghost Rider, Man-Thing, and Morbius. While they typically worked in the Midnight Sun, Russell played a big role in their rebranding as the Legion of Monsters. He also worked with them to protect Monster Metropolis, an action so crucial that it has defined the legacy of the Legion. He worked with them to protect the city and all forms of creatures ranging from zombie to amphibian people from the Hunter of Monsters Special Force. They worked with Castle to defeat this force of Japanese warriors and eliminate their threat before restoring peace in the city. While Russell is known for many charitable acts, he was not a goody two-shoes at all. In fact, he got involved with Deadpool's wife, Shikla, after she stepped up to rule Monster Metropolis. While Dracula intended to marry her, Deadpool swooped in and won her over, which resulted in a full-blown war. Russell fought the war on Deadpool's side and got a little too close to Shikla in the process. Soon enough, they ended up sleeping, and Deadpool blew his head off in an enraged state. While Gael Garcia Bernal recently portrayed this character in 2022, very few people know that he actually appeared on the silver screen ages ago in Blade Trinity. Unfortunately, he was in one of the deleted scenes where he lunges at the heroes as a violent monster and ends up dead, which is why he never really made his way to our screens until recently.
Among them.
Marvelous verdict. And with that, we conclude this video that explores Jack Russell, aka the infamous Werewolf by Night. He is certainly quite a complex personality within the Marvel Universe, and he has lived quite an adventurous life as he strikes a balance between his human and animalistic side, ranging from his superhuman strength and regenerative factor to his contribution to the Legion of Monsters. He has created quite a legacy for, and we would love to hear your thoughts on him in the comments below. If you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.